Hello, gardening friends. Today I'm going to be sharing all the different varieties of seeds I'm going to be sowing indoors this month. I've got peppers, I've got lots of flowers, I've got some herbs, and even a leafy green vegetable. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome back to my channel, gardening friends. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. So I hope everyone's staying warm and cozy. I know that it's been freezing here in my area. We've been having a cold snap for the last 2 weeks. And to be honest, I'm really over the cold weather at this point, but it is what it is. So if you are new here, I garden in Zone 6. I'm located in the Midwest portion of the United States. And I'm about almost 12 weeks out from my last frost date. So in January, I already planted a couple things. I planted some onions. I planted a couple varieties of flowers. I will link those videos above in case you want to check those out. So let's start with the things that I'm going to be starting at 12 weeks before my last frost date, which is actually coming up at the end of this week. I've got a combination of vegetables and flowers. So I'm going to start with the flowers first because that's one of my favorite things to grow. So let's start there. So for flowers, I've got, and I will also link the video where I covered all the different varieties of flowers that I'm going to be growing this year in case you need some ideas of different types of flowers that you may want to sow for your spring or summer garden. So the first one is a lobelia, and this is called Lobelia Fountain Blue. It's a beautiful mounding compact flower that is called a spiller because it has more of a trailing habit. The next one I'm going to be starting is called Verbena, Sweetheart Kisses. Another beautiful flower. And I grew this last year as a sort of a thriller to put in my container. So I'm looking forward to having plenty of this again this year. There's another verbena that I'm going to be starting, and it's called Verbena Compact Rose. Another beautiful flower that I'm planning to use as a thriller in some of my containers. And then I've got two types of colas that I'm going to be starting this month, and one is called Golden Wizard. The other is just a rainbow mix colas. And I'm going to be growing plenty of both varieties. And then I've also got a couple of petunias that I am keeping on the back seat for now, just in case I need to sow more seeds this month. So I planted out 3 different varieties of petunias last month, actually a couple weeks ago. And so far, one of the 3 varieties has sprouted. I'm still waiting for the other 2 to sprout. Hopefully, they will sprout within the next couple of days. But if for some reason I have some difficulties getting them to germinate, I am going to start these other 2 varieties because I want to make sure I have plenty of petunias to plant out in my window boxes and also in some of my containers. Right now, I've got one 6 cell tray of one of the varieties, and that's a yellow petunia. But I also want to have some like dark pink or, light pink sort of colors as well. So if those other 2 varieties don't sprout, and that's a burgundy petunia as well as a salmon petunia, if those don't sprout, I'm going to plant these other 2 varieties, which I have planted in the past before. So I'm familiar with the color scheme. This first one is called a plum pudding mix. So it's a hybrid petunia. It's called a plum pudding mix, and it's a mix of like violet and silvery purplish sort of blooms. So I'm going to be planting this one if I have difficulties getting those other 2 varieties to sprout. And then the other one I'm going to plant is called Carmine Velour. And this is like a deep pink color. And I have grown this one in the past as well. I've not opened either pack. The Carmine Valora says there's only 8 pellets in this packet, so not a lot. But usually the pellets will contain anywhere from 2 to 4 seeds. So eight doesn't necessarily equate to 8 seeds. So this should probably be sufficient for one of my seed trays. And then this other pack of the Easy Wave Plum Pudding Mix says that there are 50 pellets in here. So that'll be definitely more than what I need. I'm probably only need about 10 or 15. So yeah, just so I wanted to show you guys those, because even though I'm not sure if I'm going to have to plant them, I've got them, like I said, on the bench just in case I need to utilize them. So those are all the flower seeds that I have earmarked for my 12 weeks before last frost date. Then I have a couple of peppers, and these are all hot peppers predominantly. I'm not going to start any of my sweet peppers until toward the end of the month, which is around my 10 weeks before last frost date. So the hot varieties that I'm going to be starting are the early jalapeno, and this is a fast maturing, compact, and high yielding pepper variety. I'm just reading my note here. It says it produces 3 to 4 inch fruits. It grows to 18 to 36 inches tall with a 12 to 24-inch spread, and it matures in 60 to 70 days. So I am growing this because one, it's fast maturing, it's high yielding. I want a lot of jalapenos this year, and I want to be able to plant these not only in my raised garden beds, but also in some containers or some fabric pots. So I didn't grow jalapenos last year, so I'm going to grow a lot of them this year so that I can preserve a lot so that it can sustain us for at least 6 to 9 months. So I actually have 2 varieties of jalapenos I'm going to be growing this year. This is just one of the 2. So that's the early jalapeno pepper. And then the other jalapeno that I'm going to be growing is called a patapeno. And this, again, this is a compact mounding variety. It only gets to about 12 to 15 inches tall. It grows up to 20 inches wide. It produces 3 to 4 inch long fruit. And it says it's fast maturing with green fruit ready in 45 to 50 days. I mean, that's awesome. And red fruit in 60 to 65 days. So this will be the first one that I harvest, most likely, between the 2 jalapenos, given that it has a very short days to maturity. But yeah, I need lots of jalapenos this year. So planting 2 different varieties. And then the next set of peppers I have that are considered hot peppers, I have an Anaheim chili pepper. So this is a mild to medium heat pepper with large, sleek, and elongated fruits. It says the fruits can get about 6 to 10 inches long. It matures in 70 to 85 days. And then I have a note here that says that this chili is commonly found as the primary pepper in canned green chilies. So if you are familiar with green chilies, or if you've purchased canned green chilies from the store, this is primarily what they use for that Anaheim chili. I've grown this, plenty of times before. So nice, mild, hot pepper. And then the other hot peppers, I have a fish pepper. This is a compact variety that can get between 1.5 to 2 feet tall. Let's see, it says that the fruit color goes from green to orange, brown, white, and red, spicy and hot. So it produces 2 to 3 inch fruit. They are slightly bitter when green and sweet and hot when red. So last year I harvested quite a bit. I think I only planted two of these pepper plants and got quite a bit off of it um, throughout the whole season. I usually throw these in my homemade hot sauces just to add a little bit more kick. Has a days to maturity of 80 days. So that's a fish pepper. And then I have a cayenne long pepper, which is just a traditional cayenne long pepper. So I'm going to be growing that as well to make some hot sauce, as well as to use it for cooking. And then I've got, oh, this is the jalapeno. And then that's pretty much it. So those are all of the spicy peppers that I'm going to be starting at 12 weeks before my last frost date. And then I have one leafy green vegetable that I'm going to be starting at 12 weeks before my last frost date, and that is called a hybrid spinach lakeside. And I've grown this before, very productive spinach plant, as long as I can get it to germinate. Oftentimes I've had issues getting my spinach to germinate. So I typically would start my spinach at around like 8 weeks before my last frost date, and sometimes 10. I decided to start a little bit early this time around because I have had issues with germination in the past. I just want to make sure I give myself a couple extra weeks to work through any of those issues to ensure I get um, at least a few plants that I can plant out come springtime. So that is spinach. It says that this variety has thick, dark green, smooth leaves. It reaches baby leaf maturity at 25, between 25 and 30 days, and full maturity in 40 to 60 days. So hopefully I can get that to germinate well this time around and have plenty of spinach. And then I have an herb, and that's actually, I have a couple of herbs. One is Italian parsley. Grew this last year, did really well. And then I have two other herbs that I don't have here with me because they're in my refrigerator. One is lavender, and the lavender I actually placed in the refrigerator around 30 to 40 days ago. And then rosemary, I placed that in the fridge around 2 weeks ago. I will link in the cards a video that I posted a few weeks ago, um, where I provided some germination tips for lavender, rosemary, and some other herbs that are sometimes difficult to grow or get to germinate. So I will link that in the cards in case you want to check that out. So those are all of the things I'm going to be starting at 12 weeks before my last frost date. Now, let's move on to the things I'm going to be starting at 10 weeks before my last frost date, which will be towards the end of February. All right, so I've got, again, a good mix of vegetables and flowers. So let's start with the flowers. So for flowers, I've got Dichondra silver falls. It's a very cool flower to me, so I'm looking forward to growing this one again. And then I've got Dusty Miller silver dust. Tried to grow this last year. I actually successfully got one seed to germinate last year. So I'm hoping that I have a little bit better luck this year with my Dusty Miller. And then I've got some viola. This is the King Henry variety. Never grown this before, so I don't really know what to expect, but it looks beautiful. And I'm hoping that I can get a few of these to be able to plant in some containers for spring. And then I've got my status. This is the Forever Happy variety. And going to be growing lots of this because I love to add this to my flower bouquets. And then the last but not least are snapdragons. So going to be growing lots of these as well to plant all throughout my containers. I'm also thinking about starting some sweet peas toward the end of this month. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do. If I'm going to wait until March to start those, or if I want to start them now, or in the month of February. So the determining factor in terms of when I start them, whether I start them in February versus March, is if I start them in February, I feel like I could get them to a level of maturity where I can plant them out in March, so probably mid or late March, as I know that sweet peas typically prefer cooler weather. But if I plant them or I start them in March, then I'm probably not going to plant them out until April or May. So, and I want to plant them out so that I have plenty of time to enjoy them before it starts to heat up in my area. So yeah, I haven't decided what I'm going to do, if I'm going to just kind of wait until March and start them, or if I'm going to start them this month. So to be determined. So I guess you'll find out when I start sowing seeds. And if you see me planting sweet peas, then you would have found out my decision. So so those are all the flowers that I'm starting at 10 weeks before my last frost day. And then some, I have one herb, and that's peppermint, that I'm going to be starting toward the end of the month. So last year I planted common mint, which is in the same family as peppermint. But this year I decided I wanted to plant peppermint, um, just because I want to be able to use it for a couple of other purposes. So yeah, so I'm going to be doing some peppermint, and then I'm going to be also starting some scallions or bunching onions. So lots of these so that I can plant these out in my green stalks. And the bunching onions has the 65 days to maturity. I don't usually have any issues getting those to germinate. The peppermint, on the other hand, can be a little bit finicky. So I usually would start those at around 8 weeks, but I'm going to start them at 10 weeks just to give myself a couple weeks to work through any potential germination issues. So peppermint and scallions. So next I have all sweet peppers. So the first up are my California Wonder. This variety is from Seeds and Such. And it's a very old pepper seed. It's got a date of 2020. So I'm not confident that I'm going to get great germination. So I'm also going to be starting a California Wonder variety that's from Burpee Seed Company. And it's also going to be a good way for me to experiment to see if there is a difference in germination rate with me using a very old seed and something that's a little bit newer. So those are the California Wonders. And the other sweet peppers that I'm going to be starting are the Ozark Giant Pepper. This one matures in 70 days, 80 plus days if you want, red pepper like you see here on the seed packet. Have grown this several times before. It's a really nice thick-walled sweet pepper. And then I've got some red orange bell pepper seeds from a store-bought pepper that I'm going to be sowing as well. And then I've also got a Goliath sweet orange pepper that I'm going to be starting. This has a days to maturity of 68 to 71 days. And then last but not least, I have a sheep nose pimento pepper. Now this one I've not grown before. The description says it's an Ohio heirloom, gorgeous cheese type ripening from green to red. Fruit is round, oblate, and stylishly ribbed. Long keepers when refrigerated. Great for northern climates. And I live in a northern climate, so I'm hoping that I have really good luck with this one. And yeah, looking forward to trying it out for the first time. So this one says that it matures in 70 to 90 days. So yeah, so those are all the seeds I'm going to be starting this month. Many of them I'm going to be starting at the end of this week. Some I'm going to be starting toward the end of the month. As per usual, I will be posting videos showing you my seed starting process for these different varieties. So I hope you'll come back and check those out. If you're planning on growing any of these varieties, let me know in the comments, as well as, whether you've had great success, if you've had any challenges or issues, or if you have any tips, please do share. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope to see you all back here soon. Until next time, friends, take care.